There are really not that many novels that focus on ninja or samurai. Considering a reasonably strong appeal to the West that these individuals have, I am a bit surprised. Now, I am not sure how many novels exist in Japan on the subject of samurai. In some ways I feel it might be like us with knights and King Arthur. There is certainly a list, but it's not as exhaustive as I thought it might have been. The Dragon Scroll is by I.J. Parker, who was born and raised in Germany. She would go on to become an associate professor of English and foreign language at the Norfolk State University in Virginia. Parker has written quite a few of these novels and a collection of short stories. There were some problems with getting them into print, and about halfway through she had to self-publish the back half. The downside is the last half of the books are much more expensive and have a cover design that doesn't match the earlier releases. Overall, this is a pity, as while they are not the best books around, they are enjoyable. So while this is not an L5R novel, it is however very relatable, and most GMs and players are looking for inspiration, and this series fits that requirement. The Dragon Scroll is unusual. I am surprised it has not been more successful based on its uniqueness alone. It is a murder mystery set during the Heian period. That alone is pretty cool, as well as being a big step away from the usual style when it comes to the mystery genre. Overall, I am surprised that there are not more historical mysteries written. There are some set in the Victorian era. You have Sherlock Holmes and Poe stuff. Every now and again there is one like The Name of the Rose, which gets high marks for being authentic to the thinking of the day. So a mystery series set in samurai Japan is an interesting setup. Does it hold up? Overall, I think it does. I like samurai, and I've read a few books over the years on the subject, but I am in no way an expert, so these observations come from a casual observer. The good. Definitely the setting. It's new and interesting. It's not the same ground that has been trodden over many times. The characters are not Inspector Frost, Sherlock Holmes, Midsummer Murders, Father Brown, Cracker, or any of the other familiar styles. That is good. The pacing is overall fine. It is a little slow, but never to the point where it felt dragged. Pacing in mysteries is perhaps even harder than clues. This is obviously an issue with any story, but mysteries have the added problem of reveals. Do it too fast, and then there needs to be a bigger gap. This can lead to filler. Do it too slow, and the reader is left waiting for something to happen. This is not a figure-it-out-yourself kind of story. It has more in common with Sherlock Holmes in this area. The reader is going along for the ride. There are certainly moments when the reader can figure out what is going on, but I'm not always sure in those moments if I am being overly clever or if the writer hasn't been strong enough. The characters for the most part are okay. I freely admit that this area would be difficult. I don't think what we need is 100% historical accuracy when something is merely meant to be entertaining, but this does create a different problem. If the characters are too modern in their attitudes, then it wouldn't work. But if they are historically accurate in their views, then that can be problematic as well. Overall, I enjoyed The Name of the Rose until the end. It was written with historical values in mind. The reason the murders took place by the standard of the day might have made perfect sense, but to a modern reader, I just couldn't help but think they had to be kidding me. The characters are a little too cookie-cutter in this case. The main character is the young lord, an investigator sent on a mission to unravel the missing tax money. He's naive, eager, wants to do his job, not offend anyone along the way, and gain some glory. His old servant is a mother hen, and they pick up a brash peasant. While 3 different types of characters is a cool idea, and it is designed to open some doors for the story, at the same time they feel just a little bit chopped and formed. Some of the extra characters, though, are interesting, the governor, and some of the fringe ones. The villains I think most people will spot pretty early on, which is a problem as there isn't a lot of misdirection. There is movement, but not a lot of action. I would have liked some combat, as it is a samurai story, and there is some violence, but not really the flashing of katanas. Having said that, it isn't really a criticism, as it wasn't that kind of book. The one part of the book I did not like was the love story. It felt forced, thrown in like a box that needed to be ticked. The hero becomes a bit of a lovesick idiot, which was boring, considering there was a lot more interesting things going on. There was also the fact that it just didn't have any passion, and the sex scenes were an awkward mess. A fumbling dance of how graphic do you go, and always shying away from description. Now, I don't want this to be misunderstood. Books with love stories do not need highly descriptive sex to make them interesting. Some do not need it at all. But there has to be emotion in it regardless, and there wasn't. For an example of how graphic sex can actually be a detractor from a story, check out Eric Van Lustbader's The Ninja. So is this a great book? No. Is it a fun read? Yeah, sure. It feels like it takes itself a bit serious, and maybe that's the problem. This is a Saturday mystery samurai theatre, and if it treated itself like that, I think it would be great. But it's an interesting concept and enjoyable to spend time with nonetheless. As an inspiration for L5R, it works well. Very well in some ways for any investigator character or a GM wanting to run a mystery storyline. It shows some of the problems investigators can run into, things like politics, especially when exposure may bring dishonour upon someone or a clan. But it also highlights one very cool aspect, that just because you're a samurai, that might not get you anywhere with the peasants. Yes, you can hold their life in your hands. Yes, the caste system is very much in place, but they may see you as the enemy, an oppressor, or even just corrupt, or uncaring of the issues that they face. They may protect their own, or not help or be forthcoming with information. The Dragon Scroll did a very good job of showing that side of things. It's also a great way for a GM to add some roadblocks to the characters, showing how an investigation might unfold, what an investigator can do and can't do, what they can do but choose not to because of the ramifications. Investigations are one of the harder style of games to run. It might not be possible or desirable to follow the path in the Dragon Scroll too closely, but it will give a GM some really solid ideas, I think. So in closing, if you're into L5R, I think you'll enjoy this novel. It might not be one that you will cherish for the rest of your life, but it is fun enough and fresh enough to make spending the time reading it worthwhile.